I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 just because I have something against chicken.
Welcome once again to your favorite podcast show, Healthcare Beyond Scrap. I'm your host, David, and thank you for joining us again in today's episode. We're going to talk about an interesting topic today, and I have wonderful guests with me that are going to share their opinion on this topic with you. Often, when we talk about nurses, people's impression is, heroes, these angels and, saviors and stuff like that, right? But sometimes, their work also comes with some challenges and some dark sides too that we're going to throw light on one of them today. We're going to share a little real life story. And then my guest and I are going to discuss this topic into details to share our opinion. And also, hopefully, we can learn some lessons from this discussion. In addition to that, we are adding a very interesting segment because this topic is a little bit dark. So we're going to add some food tasting in the mix to just make it interesting, right? So we're going to be trying some food from 3 different restaurants that everybody doesn't really know about. Everybody on set, myself, Emilio got the food, so I don't know what it is. We're going to try that. And at the end of the show, we are all going to rate the food and we'll see which restaurant had the best meal or the best dish. So without wasting much time, we'll get into it. I'll let my guests introduce themselves to you. But just before that, let me tell you about this interesting thing that is going on. So your support towards this program is really helping in sponsoring some kids that I have back home in Ghana in a scholarship program that I'm running. It's called the David Entry Foundation Scholarship. So far, we have been sponsoring about 13 kids so far, and I wish I could do more. So supporting this program actually goes a long way to help those kids, and hopefully we can add some more kids to it. So yeah, thank you for joining us. And then let's go on and get our guests to introduce themselves. So Pam is on my left. We're going to start from her. So Pam, tell us a little about yourself, Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm a registered nurse in the Seattle area, and I've been a nurse for the last 2 years.
Nice. Thank you, Pam. And then following Pam is
Chris. My name is Chris. Same thing. I'm a registered nurse. I've been around for 2 years, about 1.5 years, and I'm in the Seattle area as well.
All right. And then we have to my left, immediate left is...
Hi, I'm Tasha. I've been a registered nurse for about 1.5 years now here in Seattle.
All right. And then to my extreme left?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm also a nurse in the Seattle area. I work in acute care and yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for coming, and I appreciate you for honoring this invitation. Before we dive into this topic, I'm going to give a summary, and then right after the summary, we will have our first food tasting, right? So today's topic is actually about a nurse that was in New Jersey, and in 2003, he was found guilty for poisoning patient with a drug called digoxin and also insulin. And he was working in an ICU with his co-workers for years. But he has a long history of, prior to working in this hospital, he has a history of actually poisoning other patients that they found out later, right? So we're going to discuss this topic. If you've not seen it, the title of this is called Capturing the Killer Nurse. It's on Netflix. You can find all the Killer Nurse that you can find on Netflix. So we are going to discuss this topic into details and see where it goes from here. Hopefully we can learn something from it, right? So Emilio is going to be our food master here, or chef. He's going to bring our first meals here to taste. So, all right. So, okay. So this nurse called Charles worked in an ICU, and he was poisoning patients with digoxin by injecting digoxin and then and sending them into cardiac arrest and eventually leading to death to some of them, and sometimes also insulin, and that end up crushing patients and eventually causing death to these patients. So we're going to look at this whole topic, that story, and then see where what lessons we can learn from it, right? First of all, is there anything, or if you can share with us 1 or 2 things that really stood out to you in the story? So let's start with, I'll start from Sam here on my left.
I I think talking about the difference between when he started out just doing the digoxin overdoses to when they were talking about how he would randomly spike saline bags with extra insulin, that just added that whole extra chilling layer to it. Because it's like the whole narrative was he's going after the most vulnerable and the ones who wouldn't do well otherwise, to just randomly killing people to feel powerful.
Yeah, and I found that very interesting too. What did you think about the show? What stood out to you?
I think the fact that like the hospital knew, or, they had found facts that, someone in the hospital was injecting the patients with medications that were like killing their patients, and they just hid it. And even like, they called poison control. So they even told them that they had a murderer on their hands, and they still, tried hiding it from everyone and not calling police and stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I found that very interesting too. And Sam and Chris, what did you? What stood out to you?
I would say something in the same ballpark, but the specifics behind it was very interesting to me. How they did that in because they're trying to get funding essentially for a new building. So they did that hiding of all the negative stuff going on there to kind of throw out lawsuits and everything there. So they just did that all for funding, which was kind of crazy to me when I looked into that.
Yeah. I agree with you. And what about you?
Kind of going along with how the hospital knew, but he had been doing that prior to working in the hospital. So like he's been fired. So how come this new hospital hired him and had to any background check?
Yeah, I agree with you guys, and I think the follow up to this whole thing is you guys make a very important point. First of all, like Tasha was saying, the cover up, right? How the hospital decided to cover this up, like Chris mentioned, because of lawsuits, right? Yeah. And they were looking for funding to build their new kind of building that they were working on. It brings my thoughts to this whole idea of money-driven healthcare system, and to hide that information just to be able to get funding to get your building built, and not caring about their lives. That was quite interesting to me to find out that they will do that. Yeah, and then Pam, your point is interesting too, right? I kind of feel this whole thing, right from the hiring process. What could they have missed? Because if you look at the police reports, they say that until the hospital actually, the police started the investigation before they realized they had prior record in Pennsylvania. But what really caused that hospital also to hide that information?
Yeah, I think they were hiding
from what my understanding is that they also got rid of him to cover up for not becoming public, right? What is our opinion in terms of hospitals trying to save face and then throwing either patients or nurses under the bus? I don't know if any of you have want to share what your thoughts are on that.
One phrase we've all seen dozens of times in different training modules going back to school is conflict of interest. And it's always put in the context of if you have a personal relationship with a patient, that can affect what care you give them. Or if you have a financial incentive with, say, a medication company, something like that, that can affect how you distribute care. But this is another sort of conflict of interest between wanting to expand or keep the hospital in good financial standing and the safety of your patients. And when those two things came into conflict, we kind of see which way they leaned.
Yeah. And so another thing is, what do we think actually about their co-workers, the friends? Pam, I don't know if you noticed, the close friend found it initially hard to believe. And this can happen to, having trusted co-workers and friends around, and something like that happens. It's hard to believe that, hey, I trust this person, like she was saying that even he helped him a few times and stuff like that. What was your opinion about, the friends and how they reacted to this whole thing? Do you think they should have reported it earlier, or do you think they should have believed that he wasn't doing the right thing?
So I watched The Good Nurse on Netflix, and it really focuses on the friendship between him and Amy.
Yeah.
I think that's her name. So I kind of get why at first she was like, oh, I don't it's really shocking for me because he was like really helping her in personal ways. But I mean, I feel like she should have reported it sooner. I think at first because he was really helping her with like her kids and like she was having her own medical issues and he was helping her with that. It did take her a little bit. And I think from the show, like she was investigating a lot of things behind the scenes while still like being friends with him.
Yeah. From my observation, right, Amy was really helpful later on. In the beginning, she was doubtful of the whole situation and stuff like that. But it's not easy, Chris. Like having a close friend at work that you trust.
Oh, 100%. I agree. And I think another factor that played into that too is when they're doing the investigations from what they're saying in the documentary, you saw how they were interviewing person by person, and even people that weren't close that knew of him were even hesitant to say anything as well. So that says, I think there's a more overall issue within the system itself, because we see that also daily. I know people that have written PSNs, which are safety net reports on each other or on themselves for making errors.
Yeah.
They're doing their due diligence and they still get a lot of backlash for it, which is kind of scary because if you have that backlash for reporting your own mistakes, if you're involved in any mistake, you feel like it could come back on you essentially. And that's not a good thing either. And a lot of those nurses felt like it could fall back on them in some way. So I think there's also a overall system issue when it comes to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a very important point. Like you could have, let's say, like the fear of retaliation or retribution, and this is your close friend. What if you report it and the hospital doesn't take it serious? How do you continue to work with this person? What kind of environment would that the working environment look like from there? So I think it's just a very important point, right? That makes people hesitant to report this issue. What do you think, Tasha? Do you think their friendship could have been handled in a different way?
I think especially when you work somewhere in healthcare, right? You have to trust your coworkers and you have to trust that you can rely on them, especially in tough situations, especially what we go through every day. We go through medical emergencies that some people don't even experience until, later in their lives. And so I think it's just crazy that even though, Amy in the movie, they said that she saw him injecting the lidocaine in the medication and the patient was going through code. And so the doctor was like, why did you inject lidocaine? The patient's allergic to lidocaine.
Yeah.
I don't know why. As a nurse, I would have been like, why did you inject lidocaine? I'm supposed to trust you with all these hard situations. You knew the patient was allergic, so why did you do this? I don't know why she wouldn't report that.
Yeah. I just saw that. Which I found interesting here, right? Because they were very close. She took one for him because she didn't inject the lidocaine. And she said she did. Yeah. And again, she didn't confront him about the situation, right? Because probably she feels she owes him one. Remember, he did favors by bringing her medications and covering up, her health conditions for her. So probably she felt she owed him one, and taking one for him at that point was the least she could do, right? So anyway, Sam, I'm going to start from you. But before that, we are moving quickly into our second food tasting. So Emilia is going to bring up our second food around. And then Sam, you are going to touch on this topic for me. Is that, what do you think about the hospital's action? Let's dive a little deep into that.
I think we touched on this before with the conflict of interest where they lean in the not patient direction on that. And it just reminded me of a bunch of other cases with child abuse in the Catholic Church or other instances more recently where power structures are just sort of covering each other where they value order or cohesiveness or go with the flow over the sort of justice for victims or future victims.
Yeah. And what I really think about when it also comes to that is that, so these organizations cover up not because they want to do the right thing, right? Usually the motivation is to keep face because I don't know if you heard from the documentary, but you could lose money, you could lose funding, you could lose trust from the public. And so these organizations try to avoid that by, just like Charlie's case, the first hospital he worked in, Pennsylvania, he says, let him go. It's like, well, just let them out the door, and then we don't have any trouble with the public, and the public can keep trusting us.
So that's your
Right.
not my problem, cover your bottom mentality.
Yeah. But do you think if, Pam, let's say the hospital take action, would rather save the hospital face? Because as a public person of interest, if I know the hospital is taking action to protect us from having bad nurses in the hospital, wouldn't that rather be a good thing? Or you think they could rather put backfire on the hospital rather?
I think they think it's going to backfire on them. And I think that's why they're trying to.
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
face.
Yeah. And in terms of backfire, right? Chris, do you think is it more of the money or more of the name? Or you think it's both?
I would say both, but financially, it's a major factor. Because at the end of the day, us as nurses, we know that if they do sue towards our direction, it's going to be towards the hospital itself. That's unlike providers. Because providers could get sued directly. We don't get sued directly. So the hospitals will take the massive hit on that. So I definitely think it's more financial at the end of the day. Yeah, for sure.
And some hospitals will end up throwing the nurse under the bus, right?
Oh, 100%.
But in this case, they were hesitant. Remember, so Charles was a very reputable person in the organization.
Yeah.
He had a very good reputation. He was the face of the hospital at some point and stuff like that. So I could see why they could try to protect him initially. But like you said, I think, it's more of the financial, right? Try to protect their finances and stuff like that. In terms of lesson-wise, right? What are some of the lessons we could actually learn from this, Tasha?
I think one, it's medications wise, right? Like some of the nurses in the story, they didn't know that he was injecting medications into the bags and they were just going into rooms and, they thought they were just hanging normal saline or, something that they thought was okay to hang for the patient. I think like one lesson would be like making sure that the medications that we are getting from our med rooms are like, for example, the saline are like, we open it ourselves. Sometimes it's kind of hard to trust whatever we see in that. Like, that's why like right at work, we're like, oh, if there's no labels on our, like the tubing, then we should change it. I think we should go back to like that practice of like making sure that everything is okay, even though we feel like we can trust our coworkers and we should be able to trust them, but you don't know what's happened.
Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed this, but, Amy did mention that in a documentary, I think you watched the film version, right? But in a documentary, Amy mentioned that she felt guilty because the bags that he was kind of injecting with this insulin, they carry the bags sometimes to go give to the patient. So they felt guilty because it's like you are the person who hung the bag, but you didn't know. And in that sense, like back to Tasha, what Tasha was saying, do you think we should be feeling guilty in that situation, knowing that you didn't spike the bag? And what could we do differently to prevent that from happening, right?
And at the end of the day, they shouldn't feel guilty because like Tasha was saying, like you should be able to trust your coworkers. But yeah, maybe from now on, like you should be the one to like spike the bag and like make sure it's completely new and not just like hanging in the med room. So
if we're going to follow up to that, so what should the boundaries of trust and friendship look like in the workplace?
I think I'm not saying that you should not trust your coworkers, but I think you shouldn't be too trusting of your coworkers. Because, like, for example, Amy saw this guy as her friend, and like they were very close, or they seemed to be pretty close. He was helping her outside of work with a lot of different things. So, like, I think regardless, you should just keep your eye open and like just check your surroundings and not be too trusting of everybody because you never know what they actually are doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you could see, like, their relationship was such that if you come to Amy and say, hey, Charles was doing this, I could see myself being that friend. I go, oh, no way. Because you trust the person so much that you wouldn't think they would do that. So yeah, it was a very interesting, a situation there. And also, like you said, we should trust our coworkers, but also we should be very vigilant and not everything, right? In terms of caring for your patient, I think you should want to do things by yourself.
I think like watching this as a nurse, that kind of what made it that much more horrifying is that you can see how we actively weaponize that trust and camaraderie that we have to have, especially with Amy. For reference, Amy was one of his coworkers. The last place he worked, she had a heart condition that if it was found out, she'd get fired. Her coworker knew, and he used the same trick he was using to overdose patients to slip her meds for her condition. So now we had that leverage over her, and she had her own conflict that she had to wrestle with. And he like weaponized that against it to get away with it for so long.
Yeah, and but then, right, a follow up to that is that Amy did not say anything, or she said she did not question where the medication came from. I think that was also a red flag, right? Because we get medication from Pyxis, and Pyxis is something that keeps track of what we do, right? And your coworker comes with this medication that is a prescription drug and gives it to you, and you don't say anything or ask, like, even later, right, you can say, hey, where did you get this from?
Yeah.
Right. I feel even at that point, he saved your life. And if you really don't want to report him, you should warn him. It's like, hey, it's not safe, if you found out,
Like the problem you had there was that you had a healthcare system that was more willing to, like she had to worry if that would cause her job as well, because her employer wasn't going to take care of her. So that impeded her ability to take care of her patients from this guy.
Yeah. And Chris, to you, if you look at this, like this is someone was mentioned something very important here. It's a trickle down effect, right? A messed up healthcare system causes Amy to be afraid of losing her job, right?
Yeah.
Because and then if she loses her job, she loses her insurance.
Yeah.
Right. And then also leading to her getting medications from Charles and then not reporting it. And Charles was able to, like Sam said, get leverage and go ahead and do all these things. What do you think is the best way we can reconcile the system? Because it's a messed up healthcare system that leads to all this trickle down, nuances that come with it.
Yeah. I think when it comes to that, it has to be from the top down. So like you hear about facilities from my hometown, the largest hospital from there, you hear about how they have long-term patients that have Foley's in. They do things out of their way to kind of avoid liability. So I think in this sense as well, if they avoid liability in certain ways, they're not liable. They'll see it in the legal sense, like, hey, if there was a mistake, that's on the nurse, but that's not our issue. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things that they kind of put in place there. Because, for example, this facility has where they don't test for long-term patients with Foley's. They avoid testing altogether for UTIs. If it goes into a worse state, they're just like, hey, hands off. Like, that's not from the Foley. That's not our issue. So they don't have to pay anything.
Yeah.
So everything seems like it's centered around the financial benefits of the hospitals themselves. So I think it also kind of trickles down to that. I think you got to start off from the top down, kind of work your way back down that ladder, and then it will work down to us where it's like, hey, we got to do a little more here. We got to do a little more due diligence because that will make everything more straightened out.
Yeah. And I think like the healthcare system, the approach should be more solution versus consequences, right? Because this healthcare system is trying to avoid being sued or losing money. So it reports, instead of testing for UTIs, they will not test for it. If you don't test for it, you don't have records of it to prove that the hospital is having high rate of UTIs, right? But then the reason they are not doing that is probably because if it goes out there, they'll be punished by losing funding and all that stuff, right?
100%.
So they try to prevent that. So I think the approach from the authorities should be more of a solution or helping the hospital to resolve the issue rather than punishing them.
100%. I agree.
From because of that. So that would let people be more open to talk about report issues like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are about to move to our third food tasting. So if you haven't tasted done with this one, Emilio is getting ready to get the third one. Well, anyway, so we have went on. We are heading towards the end of this shortly. But before we get there, what do you guys think about the family, Charles' family, and his impact or the family's impact on his behavior? Do you guys think it had any role to play in what he was doing? If you look at his background, like family background.
Don't quote me on this, but I think he did have a rough childhood growing up. So I don't know much about it, but I do know that his family does have like a role on why he is the way he was.
I think he said that like his mom was the only person he had in his life, and when his mom died, that support system kind of fell apart.
Yeah. And again, so these are all true stories, right? These are things that happen in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Should it be an excuse for somebody to kill other people? Should it be an excuse? The fact that he had this background where his mom died, his mom was the only person that, and he spiraled out into all this loneliness and stuff like that. Should it be an excuse for a person to end other people's life in the way that Charles did?
Of course not. I really wish actually the documentary had gone more into what people thought of him or how he was leading up to. Because like you don't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I think instead of saving people, I want to kill people now." There had to be some progress or steps leading up to that, and I would have been curious about that. So honestly, I think the best thing that would have prevented this from happening is nurses looking out for each other. And you stop it small, you stop it early, and yeah, that would have prevented a lot of this watershed effect happening.
Yeah, and Chris, if you listen to this Charles himself, he said, I wanted to stop, I couldn't stop myself.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe there's a mental health issue associated to that?
I think it's more mental health for sure. I think there's a lot of people that have lost family members throughout time. That's just kind of a thing with life. It's unfortunate, but it is the case. I know some people that have even lost like a father, a mother, whatever it may be. But like you can't make excuses for like terrible behaviors off of that.
Yeah.
So like whether you lost a father, whether you lost a mother, whatever the situation is, behavior shouldn't reflect something to that extreme. It's either that's something you can work on throughout life, and you kind of know that kind of going into it because you're experiencing that level of loss, maybe at a young age, whatever age it may be. But you can't justify like your actions later on in life off of that.
Yeah, and Tasha, if you look at him, he said he said he wanted to stop himself, couldn't stop himself, but he didn't come across as somebody who actually also seeked for help. And what do you think would be a best way for people to come out and look for help in that situation? Because if you're killing people, I'm thinking at some points you should talk to even a close friend like Amy, right? Hey, I think I have a problem. What would be your suggestion? Do you think people should open up more, or what other ways could people actually address those issues?
I think like, as nurses, we offer these resources to our patients. Like, hey, if you need help, for mental, emotional, physical, financial support, we provide them those resources, and he had access to those resources who could help them. It was a matter of if he chose to get the help or not. And I think maybe him giving the medication to Amy was like him saying like, I need you to ask me where I got this medication from, but you didn't. Maybe it was just something like, please help me. But then again, it's also his choice as someone who gives resources out to his own patients to use those resources for himself.
Yeah. And, I never thought about it that way. I think this is a very important point that you raised there about, giving the med to Amy should have been could be a way he was asking for help, right? Like Amy to ask. And I think that would be an important point for us, or a lesson for us to, have that curiosity to ask, if somebody brings you a prescribed medication or a very rare medication, you go like, where did you get this from? Especially in a workplace where you definitely know that the person might have got it from the patient, stuff like that, like we mentioned earlier, and trying to talk to the person, say, hey, thank you for bringing me this medication, but please, I don't think it's amazing. Yeah. So I think anyway. So, is there in general, watching this whole documentary and the movie you did on your side, Pam, what would you say is the lesson you learned from this?
That's what I was saying earlier. Don't be too trusting of everybody just because they're your friends. But also, you should be able to trust your coworkers, but you gotta just look out for everything and just see if people need help because, like you said, not everybody's gonna be like, I need help. I'm like killing people. Like, help me, please. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
I think like putting on to what Pam said. Yeah, I agree with what she says. I think it also brings to light a lot of systemic issues that we have, a lot of financial ones specifically. And it's not even one facility that they kind of looked at and it's like, hey, it's that one specific facility. It's multiple here.
Yeah.
So the neglect behind that, it all seeming it's coming from like a financial side. That's kind of, that's kind of rough.
Yeah. What about you, Tasha?
I think like one lesson, like alongside with Pam's, is like separating our own personal life from like our work life. When we go to work, we have to leave our own personal life at home or, at the door because we don't want to bring that into our work life. And I think watching this documentary, it's like, even though we're friends outside, I think we're fortunate enough that we, work in a place where we can trust our coworkers and we're also friends with each other outside of work. So I think like, not a lot of people have that at their workplace. And I think, leaving our personal life and our work life separate is like, the way that we should go forward with it.
Sam.
It gave me an appreciation for the sort of responsibility we have in our job and just respect for the dangerous stuff that we work with. And then the other thing that stuck with me was how important it is that as much as you trust your coworkers, lean on them, have camaraderie with them, patients always come first.
Yeah.
Like there were so many times where the investigation not produce anything, just on lucky breaks, like the post-it note that was left in the file that led him to the other department that was investigating.
Yeah.
Or the poison control knew what was up. It had been someone who, it was their first day, dead end.
Yeah.
Or the boss leaving when they were interviewing all of the employees that he worked with.
Yeah.
When he got to Amy, the boss had to leave for whatever reason, and that's when it got real.
Yeah, and very important point there. If the boss didn't leave at that point, I'm not sure if they could have gone far with that investigation. So I think everything just fell in place for that to happen, and thank goodness, because how many people would he have end up killing?
We shouldn't have to rely on lucky breaks like that to protect patients. And if we have an environment where we're looking out for patients first, hopefully that can happen.
And I think one thing that I've seen some other shows or documentaries that talk about these nurses who kill people, and most of them sound like some motivation of ending the suffering of others, right? Ending the pain and suffering of others. And I think to them, they think they were doing good. Even Charles, one of what he was saying was that he couldn't stand seeing the people suffering, and he was trying to help them, right? Taking them out. So I think it should be a kind of a red flag if you are talking with a coworker who is like, I wish I could, end the suffering from these people. Because I'm like, okay, I've come across people who have said, I wish I can help people to die. And I'm like,
That's a crazy statement.
yeah. And I'm like, you are going into nursing and all you think about is to help people to die.
Yeah.
It's
a lot. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just difficult to tell too, right? But some said, like Sam was saying, patient first all the time, patient first. So no matter how trusting you are of a coworker, if you suspect something is good. In our previous episode, we did mention, it doesn't hurt if you report for investigation to be done, right? At least the investigation was done, the person was not guilty, life moves on. But if there's something going on and you fear to report it and there's harm being done to people, it might be too late. With Charles's case, I think they might have gone up to a lot of people that were not accounted for. 20, 40 people. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So anyway, thank you for joining us. If you've been watching to this point, we are at a place where we are going to be rating our food. And so let's see what our guests rated our food at and which restaurant actually won this one. So we'll start with plate number 1. We're going to rate it between 1 and 5. So with your first plate, Sam, how would you rate it?
So the first one was pretty basic. It had I think, was it Dick's?
I don't know.
No, don't spoil it.
I don't know.
Honestly, I think the first one was my favorite because it was the simplest, easy to hold on to, good cheese. one high favorite.
All right. So what number would you give it?
I give it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay, Tasha?
I give it a 3 out of 5.
For the first one?
Mhm.
What about you, Chris?
I would say like 3.5 out of 5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just go in the middle.
How about you, Pam?
I'll give it a 3. Out of,
3.
yeah.
Okay, so Sam gave it a 4, and the rest of you around 3. What about, let's start from the second one.
I actually at first when I saw the egg, I was like, I don't know about that. But actually it was really good. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5
Yeah.
for the second one. What about you, Chris?
I'm going to half that, give it a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5. Okay.
I was not on board with it.
That's so that we all have different facts, right? So anyway, Dasha, what do you read the second one?
I also give it a 2 out of 5. Mine was a little bit soggy.
Oh,
Well, my egg was not
Oh,
that soggy, so that's why I liked it.
but from there, I'm not agreeing with you. What about you, Sam?
I'd say a 3. It wasn't bad, but where the other one went just rock solid basic, this one tried to go a little bit extra, but everything on was good, so I can't fault it too much.
So 3 for you. Okay, what about the third one?
Third one, it's a chicken burger, so it's kind of on a different scale, but it was delicious, so I'll give it a 3.5.
3.5. Okay. And what about you, Tasha?
I give it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. And you?
I say 5 out of 5.
Okay.
I already know what it is. I already know. Listen, I'm a big Drake fan too. I'm a big Drake fan, so that's my go-to. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my go-to.
All right. So how about you, fam?
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 just because I have something against chicken nowadays. So,
Chicken burgers?
just chicken in general.
Oh, chicken.
I went to buy
You have a beef with chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. You have beef with chicken.
What did chicken do to you?
Well, one time I had a grilled chicken burger or sandwich, and I took a bite into it and it was pink on the inside.
Mm.
So since then, I just kind of have beef with.
Oh, that's
You have beef with
unfortunate.
the one on the
Yeah, exactly. That's unfortunate.
What did the chicken do? It's a mess of cook.
Yeah, but it was so gross that every time I see chicken, it just
Oh,
kind of goes to that
yeah.
time. So I just can't.
Traumatic experience.
Yeah.
It's like a traumatic relationship. Just like, I can't do it.
I think Pam told me this story while we were in the Chick-fil-A parking lot.
Yep.
Things are never go wrong with chicken, right? I have mac and cheese.
Well, so can we guess what places we think the food came from?
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Guess what places you think the food came from.
I think the first one came from Dick's. As far as the second and third, I got no idea.
Okay, how about you, Tasha?
Maybe the first one from McDonald's. The second one from, I don't know, Shake Shack.
Second one?
Oh, no, second one, was it Burger Master? That's the one?
Oh, yeah.
Second one, Burger Master.
I think Shake Shack. I'll say Shake Shack.
Shake Shack.
And the
then
third
what about?
one, Dave's Chicken.
Okay. What about
Yeah. So first one, definitely Dick's.
Okay, never mind.
Had the tartar sauce, 100%. And then second one, it's a place I've never eaten before. I can tell that. It's probably whatever they said. And then the third one is definitely Dave's, like 100%.
What about you?
I'm just gonna go with Tasha's answer.
Same answer.
Well, except for I think the first one is steaks. So
Oh,
I changed
Yeah.
my answer too then. The first one is Dick's.
And I gotta stick by it now.
so
You gotta commit.
now let's go to our food master here. Emilio, where did this food come from?
So the first one, actually, you guys are right. From Davis.
Hey, I knew it.
Hey, this did it right.
Second one, it's actually no well known.
Mhm.
It's the burger joint near our Swedish Bristol.
What's the name?
It's called City Burger.
City Burger.
Yeah, the egg part was interesting, so that's why I picked it.
Yeah.
The burger is called Storm.
Storm.
Like the
Oh, okay.
that's the word.
Wait, had eggs?
Oh,
Wait, had eggs?
yeah.
I'm tempted.
well, good thing you're surrounded by nurses.
Yeah, with no medications. I'm just out of luck.
Call 911.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't trick me because I know you're not allergic.
Yeah.
Sure, that's right.
You did tell me. I think you said
Shellfish. I got you there.
You were like,
Gotta keep you on your toes.
All right. So, well, you had them.
I guess it's the one Dave's.
This. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one was Dick's. The second one was City Burgers in Seattle. And then the third one was Dave's.
We
Right.
actually Uber Eats Dave's chicken at work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That
I didn't know that.
What
One
the-
time I got something too spicy and I was there for like 30 minutes. Like, oh, I can't go in right now. Like, I gotta cool down for a second. I stepped outside. I was like cold outside. I was all right. Maybe I feel better.
Outside the ED.
Yeah, for real. I just go straight
So
down.
which ones did we rate as the highest? I think some I know you rated the
Oh, yeah.
first one. So that was Dick's, right?
Yep.
And then you rated the last one.
Yeah,
That was
100%.
Dave's.
Dave's.
So,
No question.
and then which ones did you guys rate at the
The
highest?
second
The
one.
third
This-
one. The last one.
The last one. So we don't have, it's outside it's tie for everything because
Whoa. We can't base it
Whoa.
off of Pam's chicken trauma. Like, you can't do that. Like, Pam's chicken trauma can't factor into it.
no, because he went for Dick's. You
Okay.
went for,
It's 2 for Dave's.
Yeah, 2 for
City,
Dave's.
And then 1 for Dick's.
Yeah, so Dave's
So
or Dave's had 2.
one.
Dave's had 2.
that too. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
Dave's
Dave's.
one.
There we go.
Hey, Dave and Dave's. Hey, if you want.
Sponsor.
Dave's sponsor.
Yeah, so Dave's won this one, and then I think the second place is Dick's.
Yeah. And
Um,
the first place was, the second place was City Burger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second place was.
You just
City
want
Burger
the
or-
second one to be
or
third.
Dick's.
So bad.
Well, so you had us. The
Yeah.
first one, Dick's.
No, first. Oh, we're talking about the order. I thought you were talking
Yeah, the
about
order.
oh, the actual winners.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it
Dave's
is
first.
Dave's, Dick's, and then yeah. Pam's
okay.
opinion.
Yeah, Dave's.
Pam's opinion kind of iffy on that one.
Trump really destroying that one for him. So
You guys just don't have good taste.
I
You
guess-
just craving breakfast. I feel like that's what it was.
She's a night shift nurse. That's why.
Well, so if you've been watching us at this point, thank you for joining us. We've come to the end of this episode. I hope you're able to learn something from this documentary, and also we're able to learn which places you could have your meal from, actually, your burgers from. So thank you for joining us, and then I'll see you in the next episode, and have a great day.